Okay, here we are again, back in our transaction, and I am in my documents area. And what I'm going to show you right now is how to fill out probably the most important parts of the document. As I get started here, I want to emphasize that you should print out the purchase agreement and read it. I'm not going to go through this paragraph by paragraph. What I'm going to do is show you what things to address when writing an offer. And the way that I fill this out is going to probably be the cleanest way you can fill it out. Starting with agency disclosure, you want to put your buyer's names here. They'll be filled in here. We're in the gray area. You check buyer, make sure that PMZ is listed as the agent. Your name goes under here as the buy agent person. PMZ's DRE number goes here, 00405158 is that number, and then your individual DRE number goes in here. Next page over here is the possible representation of more than one buyer or seller. If you filled out the other form, this will auto-populate the buyer's information, and it'll also auto-populate your information. The wire fraud transfer and electronic forms advisory form, click in here, allow you to fill in the address. This will also auto-populate the address in the rest of the form. So let's just pick an address and go 1234 Main Street. Looks like there's a 1233 Main Street in Modesto, so let's just go with that. You'll see that it auto-populated it there. We click outside of that. Keep going. So here's the essence of the offer. Start of page 1. You want to make sure you put the date that you prepared the form there. The name of the individual goes here. If you put a name in up here in the first page, so let's just put Tom Jones and say they're married to Sarah Jones, and that goes in there. And when we get to page 1 of the purchase contract, you're going to see that their names are already here. The address is already pre-populated it because you put it in the other form. The only thing left to do is put the parcel number here, and you can find that on the MLS printout. Next comes the price. How much are you going to offer? So you need to know, let's say $350,000. You punch that in there. It auto-populates here where it's written. You want to close this transaction in 30 days. Make sure you've spoken to the buyer's lender so they can tell you how much time you're going to need. So 30 days goes in here. And then a critical area is here, where you're talking about who is representing the seller, who is representing the buyer. Because you automatically are representing the buyer when you're filling one of these out, it puts your information in here. Make sure that your license number is also in here as well. If any of this is incomplete, you're going to be flagged on it later, and it'll need to be completed. You'll put the other company's brokerage name in there. Let's just say it's brokerage name. The other agent is agent doesn't matter. Remember, they need to have their DRE number in there and that DRE number in there, and you can get those from the MLS printout. Next thing is the initial deposit. Make sure you read this here so you understand what the initial deposit is. Typically, what I like to see is 1% of the purchase price. So in this case, I would ask my buyers for $3,500 earnest money deposit. Make sure you read this. They don't have to give that to you. That is delivered upon acceptance. And then it's important to know what kind of a loan they're going to have, whether it's going to be an FHA loan, a VA loan, or just a traditional conventional loan, because you need to know what percentage of the price is going to be the loan amount. And so that's what's going to go in this section here. So we know that FHAs are 3.5% down. So the loan amount on something like that would be 96.5%. Or if you're getting a conventional loan, they vary 5, 10, 15, 20%. You need to know what that amount is. I'm just going to stick a number in here. So 300,000, let's say that's what's going to be their loan amount. Down here, it says 46,500 is the remaining amount of the down payment for a total price of 350,000. Okay. Next page, what we need to put down here, the important stuff is at the bottom. Again, read the stuff that's in here because that's important. If you have any questions, let me know. So here's where the seller is the one who pays for the natural hazard zone disclosure. Down here, you can get rid of this. Just put seller's choice. OICE is enough there. If you were asking for the seller to pay for any other reports, that would go here. Typically, no other reports are included just to keep it as clean as possible. The seller, you ask them to pay for smoke alarm and carbon monoxide installation and water heater bracing. Next, we move to page 3. Here we're talking about escrow and title. Typically, no matter where you go in the county or in areas nearby here, that escrow fee is split 50-50 between buyer and seller. And the escrow holder, I typically like to put seller's choice, let the seller pay or choose, for the escrow holder that they want. Seller typically pays for the owner's policy of title insurance. That's true in all of Stanislaus County other than Turlock. In Turlock, it's the buyer and seller, they split it. And so here's where you would put, again, if it's being split, you put 50-50. If not, then you just leave it with the seller paying it all. If you're doing business in San Joaquin County, all of San Joaquin County is buyer and seller. Understand, though, that if the buyer is paying for any portion of that policy, the seller can't dictate who the escrow holder is. Next in here, and other costs, is the county transfer tax. Every county has a transfer tax. You'll see city transfer tax. In Stanislaus County, there are no cities that have transfer taxes. Now you go into the Bay Area. There are some Bay Area cities that do have transfer taxes, so you have to be aware of that. If you're dealing with a transaction with homeowners association dues, that needs to be addressed here, and those are typically all paid by the seller. The other conversation to have with the buyers is down here on D10, which deals with the home warranty. So if they choose not to have a home warranty or ask the seller, right now you can ask the seller to pay for it. They don't always pay for it. So understand what those costs of those plans are. Here at PMZ, we have American Home Shield and Old Republic Home Protection are the two that we have marketing agreements with. So those are the two that we typically cover with our clients. So be sure that you have copies of those brochures and have reviewed those. So if they choose not to have one or not to ask for one, then this box needs to be checked here where they waive their the right to pay for one or order one. So that's important there. Down here where it says items included and excluded, always check stoves. The stoves are always included in the transaction. It's something that is typical here. Make sure that that's checked so that it avoids any confusion later. If you wanted them to leave the refrigerators, you could check here. Doesn't happen, but sometimes it does. If you want them to leave all washers and dryers, you can ask for all washers and dryers by checking the box. If they choose not to leave those, they will counter those out in a counter offer. Possession. Possession, when do you want the buyer to be able to receive possession? By default, they receive it on 6 p.m. on the date of close of escrow. I usually like to ask for 11 a.m. possession. If the sellers have a problem with that, they'll counter it back to you in something different. Sometimes sellers need a couple days to move out. That's where that gets addressed here. So if that's the case, we can talk about that on how to structure that when you get a counteroffer. Everything else in here is pretty standard. Talks about condition of property, the buyer's investigation rights. That's why I say you need to read this form or sign up for a class that goes over this paragraph by paragraph. Paragraph 14 is one of the most important paragraphs in there because it deals with time frames. And so it just continues when they get to the bottom, page 9. Make sure that they can respond to you. So your name goes in here. They have 3 days to respond, and then your buyers sign here. You have to make sure that your information is complete down here under the buyer's brokerage firm. You sign it as well, and then you send it off to the other agent for their review. And those are the basics, the very basics of completing the purchase agreement. Let me know if you have any questions. Take care.